You're listening to The Blind Stealing the Blinds, a podcast by students of the game for students of the game. Join Dell and BJ in conversations about poker theory and bridging the gap between theory and application. We're all in this together. This week's topic, does win rate even matter?
Hey, Dell, how's it going this week?
It's going all right. I've had a pretty good week. Got to enjoy Father's Day today. Both my kids let me know they love me. My wife still loves me. Things are good. It's a blessed life. How are things going for you?
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you too, BJ.
And happy Father's Day to all of our listeners who are either fathers or might not know yet that they're fathers, but hey, whatever. Things are going well. Speaking of fathers, my father just left. We closed on his house in West Virginia on Thursday. That saga is over. He is moving in now, and he may very well close on the sale of his existing house next Friday, in which case that chapter of his life in New York is coming to a close. He's starting a new one in West Virginia, closer to family, and I'm looking forward to that. There will be a lot more golf in our future, a lot more family visits. It's going to be good. I consider it a win-win, and as I consider that a win-win, our topic for this week is whether win rates even matter. So Dell, let me ask you, do win rates even matter?
I'm going to answer with the ultimate poker answer.
It depends.
Depends. Yeah, it depends. The thing is that win rate doesn't matter for everybody. And what happens, we hear all the serious players are always talking about their win rate, but it doesn't matter for everybody. And we're going to explain that. So first of all, what is win rate? This is going to sound obvious, but just in case there's someone out there listening who doesn't know, win rate is a measurement of how much we win on average. And it's measured in big blinds per hour, which is usually how live players measure it, or big blinds per 100 hands, which is how online players usually measure it.
So I think the funny thing is that you mentioned it's the measurement of how much we win on average. The problem with being on average is it means the long run. And if you've been playing poker for any length of time, you know that the long run is really, really long. Just for example, I crushed 2021 with a win rate of almost 20 big blinds per hour. I only played 260 hours. That win rate doesn't really even matter. That's not long enough to withstand the slings and arrows of variance. Live players usually need to play like a couple thousand hands, and online players can easily log 50,000 hands in a month or two? Live players won't do that for years.
It usually takes a couple months for the average online player. The more serious ones are going to knock out 50,000 hands in a month. Sometimes. It's usually going to take 2 months. The thing is that it can be laughable, like when somebody says, I win 50 big blinds an hour. All right, well, that's amazing. That's incredible. How many hours have you played? 5. It doesn't really count because it's not long enough. Because variance is both positive and negative, and you can experience positive variance and have this killer win rate that looks amazing until you actually break it down and you start looking at it like how many hours did the person really play. So you're going to want a couple thousand hours worth of playing time before you can really look at that win rate is even legitimate. And if you're playing online, you're going to want about 100,000 hands before you can start looking at that win rate as being legitimate. And obviously, the more hands you have, the more accurate it's going to be. But here's the funny part. If you're playing that much, even then, it's hard to be accurate with the win rate because you're going to be a different player in that last 500 hours than you were in that first 1,500 hours of playing. And you're going to be a different player in that last 10,000 hands of playing than you were in that first 140,000 hands of playing. You're going to be a different player because you're playing so much, right? You're going to get better. If you're studying and all that, you're going to be a totally different player. Win rate matters. It's important to players that are going to be regular players that are playing a lot of hours. It matters to players that are going to be online players playing a lot of hands. It matters to professional players because even though it's not really easy to judge, even though it's really hard to measure, we still have to have some measurement of how we're doing. We have to have some measurement of whether or not we're improving. The thing that needs to be understood is that it takes a lot of time in hands to really determine how accurate that win rate is. Somebody will play 200 hours and they think they've played a lot of hours. That's not a lot of hours. That's not a lot of hours when you compare it to somebody who's playing 30 hours a week over a year. That person playing 30 hours a week and is probably putting another 12 hours a week in study time, that person can look at their win rate and it's going to be far more accurate than the person who played 200 hours for the whole year.
When you ask the question of whether win rate matters, it sounds like win rate matters to someone that wants to improve, that wants to get better, either a full-time pro, a regular who wants to go pro, someone who's taking this game more seriously than just the recreational weekend warrior. Now, if you want to try to get better, the best way to do that is to gauge the quality of your decision making. However, poker is that kind of game where you can't necessarily judge the results from the decisions, and that's why we need to get that high level of volume to cure variance. We need to play so many hands and so many hours of poker so that the variance almost washes out. And then your results might better approximate the quality of your decisions. And if you see that your win rate is lower than you'd like it to be, then you could start mining your database of poker hands or your hand histories to find out where you're making mistakes. Now, if you're just a recreational player out there to have fun, you might not care if you're making mistakes. You might not care how much you win or lose. You might just be there to have fun, and that's okay.
Yeah, in fact, we're glad to have you at the table. We want you at the table. We want to make it more fun for you. Please, if you're a recreational player, come and join us. And I think recreational players can work on getting better too. Sometimes they want to win more and they want to have fun. But the reality is they're not playing enough for win rate to really matter. What should matter to them is having fun at the table. Come and have as much fun as possible. If you're playing one weekend a month, if you're playing maybe 50, 60 hours a year, just come and have fun. Don't worry about how much your win rate is. Come and have fun. Enjoy the game. Hopefully you win. Hopefully you come back. Listen to our podcast because we'll give you some good advice and have fun. But win rate's going to matter for those that, you're right, the regulars, the professionals. It's really important for regulars, and I don't think most regulars do anything to even look at their win rate. It's important to regulars because a lot of regulars lie to themselves. They're losing players, right? And the reason why it should be important to them to know that is they don't pay attention. What's going to end up happening is they're eventually going to go broke, and then they're not going to be regulars anymore. It takes that moment of looking at that win rate and seeing, oh, wait a minute, I'm not really a winning player. When I start tracking everything accurately, I'm a losing player. I need to do something about this. I don't want the regulars all going broke. I don't want anybody going broke because if that happens, then the game goes away. I would still like the regulars to lose money to me and to our listeners, but I don't want them going broke. They are the foundation of what you're going to find in every poker room, right? They're the reason that every poker room is there is for the regulars. They show up every week, every night.
Yeah, I would take it even a step further. I heard you say if you have weekend warriors or recreational players who only play 60 hours a year, just go to have fun. That might even extend to someone like me, where even though I crushed 2021 at the tune of 20 big blinds per hour over 260 hours, and I crushed 2020 at 15 big blinds per hour for something like 300 hours, that's still fewer than 600 hours. That may not necessarily be long enough to withstand the ups and downs of variance. I might have been on a heater. I might have made bad decisions and got away with it because the cards ran my way. So, should I care about win rate? Maybe not. I do care about the quality of my decisions, though. And I would say that if anybody out there cares about the quality of your decisions, don't focus so much on win rate, but focus on discussing hand histories with your community, deconstructing your ranges, understanding the fundamentals, and getting better at that. You can still improve and not focus on win rate.
Yeah, I think that win rate is good for you, only because you understand that you don't play enough for it to matter that much. I still think that it's still a measurement of improvement. And you're not the typical recreational player. And I think that this is, I wasn't really planning on addressing this part, but I think this is important to address. To you, poker is a side hustle. Your purpose is to go make money. You do have fun at it, but to you, you want to make money when you're playing. You use that money for other things. Or at least you have in the past. You've used it for making car payments. You've used it for investments. One could argue you're a semi-professional poker player. I wouldn't go that far. You don't quite play enough hours, but that argument could be made. It's certainly a side hustle. So if it's a side hustle, does win rate matter? Well, yeah, of course it does, because it's a side hustle. It would, whenever you pick up a side hustle, you want to be making money at that side hustle. And if you're not, then it's no point in doing it, right? So it matters. But I think that it's very important to determine how accurate it's going to be. So for somebody like you, crushing at 22 big blinds an hour, is that really your win rate? It is the actual win rate you did. But how accurate is that for judging going forward? Are you always going to win at 22 big blinds per hour? No. That's you really crushing it. And if we extrapolate that over 10 years, I think it would be fair to say your win rate is going to be around 15 big blinds, 10 to 15 big blinds, and that would be amazing. That would be really crushing the game. And I think you could legitimately do that. You should always extrapolate conservatively. You shouldn't look at it and say, well, I'm winning 10 big blinds an hour, but I really think I'm a 30 big blind an hour player. You can't do that. Extrapolating that in a conservative manner doesn't hurt you. Trying to do it in a overly optimistic manner is going to lead to a lot of pain and agony if you don't meet those numbers. I think it matters to anybody who it's a side hustle for. It matters if you're a regular. It matters if you want to move up in the category you're in. Like if you're a rec player and you want to become a professional, well, then you need to start playing more and you need to start tracking win rate. If you're a rec player and you have only desire is to go play and socialize with people, it's never going to matter. Your win rate's never going to matter. What's going to matter is go and you have fun.
If you decided that you're the type of player for whom win rate matters, then I think a couple of considerations are important for you to make. First of all, 10 big blinds per hour or more is generally considered crushing the stakes that you're playing. If you're thinking you're a winning player because you make 4 big blinds per hour, that really might not be that impressive. Also consider the hidden costs that you don't see when you rack up your chips. How long did it take you to get to the casino? How much did you have to pay in gas money? How much did you have to pay for meals and tipping the dealer and tipping the drink servers? All of those hidden expenses are things that a lot of people don't even consider in their win rates. So I bought it for 300. I cashed out for 400 over 10 hours. All right, you made $100 over 10 hours, but it took you 2 hours round trip to drive there, and you ended up spending $60 in food. So really, how much did you really make there? Not that much.
No, that's exactly right. Most people will not track that. I think that it's all right to not track it. If you're 10 minutes from the casino or 20 minutes from the casino, I think it's fine to say, I'm not going to count my travel time as part of my hourly rate. I think it's fine. I build scaffold, I drive to work. I don't count the amount of time I'm driving to work. I count the fact that I make a certain amount of hour at that job. But I think that if you get to the point where you're traveling more than half an hour, you have to track it, because what you're doing is, if it's a side hustle, then it's a business. If you're a professional, then it's a business. If you want to be a professional, then you have to treat it like a business. So those 3 categories right there, then you have to track all that stuff. If you're a regular, but it's not a business to you, you do it because you do it every night, because it's what you love to do, it's how you unwind, that's fine. You should probably track it because you're there so much and you want to know if you're losing money. You need to be honest with yourself. It's those 3 categories there. It's a side hustle, then yeah, you absolutely need to know what your win rate is, because it's a business. You want to go pro, then you have to act like a pro. Track it. You're a pro. If you're a pro, you already know this. There's no pro out there that we're saying this to that doesn't already do it. And if there is, how they're doing it is amazing, because usually if you're not tracking this stuff, if you're not tracking your mileage, every bit of you expend, the tips that you give need to be counted. That's all stuff against your win rate.
One of the basic tenets in project management, what doesn't get measured can't get improved. Now, I'm not saying win rate is the end all and be all, because we had discussed everything concerning volume and variance and things like that. But in the long run, when variance mellows out over time, win rate is a good approximation of your skill level. And it's a great way to help you find leaks. If your win rate is lower than it should be, or you find out you finally start tracking and it's pretty low, it might be indicative that you have some leaks that you need to plug.
Yeah. I mean, if you play online, it's not hard to track. Your win rate is real easy to track. Poker Tracker 4, Hold'em Manager, and a note. There's no reason if you play online not to track it because you don't even have to work at it. It'll track it, but it gets better than that. You get to track your win rate in given situations. You get to track your win rate in 3-bet pots, 4-bet pots, limped pots. You can track all your win rates in every single one and find leaks that way. Live, it's harder to do that, but you can look at it, and if you can say that you have consistently put out a certain win rate for a while, and suddenly that win rate changes, something has changed. Either you're starting to make a mistake you didn't used to make, or the environment you're playing in has evolved. They have learned your tactics, or they've learned your frequency flaws to where they can attack them. There might be something in there. So even in live, if you suddenly see that, that's a thing you got to be really careful about, though. Because what happens to a lot of players is they suddenly start losing and they think they're doing something wrong and they start trying to make all these changes in their game and they magnify that downswing. You may not be doing anything wrong. So I think it's important to take that win rate and present it to your coach and say, well, this is what's going on, and be able to talk out your hands and hand histories and see, are you really doing something wrong all of a sudden, or are you going through a phase of negative variance?
Really, the application that we're asking our listeners to take in this episode might simply be, don't care so much about win rate, but instead care more about the quality of the decisions you're making in each hand with those hand histories, talking about different decisions you made in your hand histories. If you want to take the game more seriously, you're a pro, you want to be a pro, you aspire to be professional, take win rate more seriously, track everything, track all of your expenses, including commute time, gas, meals, tips, all that stuff, and then see if that win rate is indicative of any leaks you have in your game. And then use those hand histories or Poker Tracker 4 or Hold'em Manager to find the source of those leaks and then work to plug them.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I think that we've pretty much covered this topic, and it was a lighter topic, and we're going to get into some more serious stuff next week, and I think this was a nice little light one. I think it's important, and I'm kind of happy about it.
It was a good Father's Day episode.
Yes, it was. It was a good Father's Day. Once again, happy Father's Day to everybody out there.
Happy Father's Day to you too, and everybody out there. Thanks for joining me, Dell.
It's been awesome. Thanks, BJ.
And until next week, stick to the plan, and may all your variants be positive.
This has been The Blind Stealing the Blinds, a podcast by students of the game for students of the game. If you haven't already done so, consider subscribing. And when you're not counting your chips, take a moment to leave the guys a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get yours.